for now. Big news. I mean, this whole conversation of World War III. Let's have a little listen. Donald Trump, he has been speaking out about it.
Through weakness and incompetence, Joe Biden has brought us to the brink of World War III. We're at the brink of World War III.
Are we? I mean, of course, in case you're not familiar, this comes off the back of 3 US troops essentially have been killed by a drone strike in a US base in Jordan. Richard Tice, where are you on this notion of kind of World War III? Are we, I was going to say sleepwalking into it. Some people would say we're hurtling, head first, feet first, you name it, into it.
Well, we all hope we're not, absolutely. And we all want peace, apart from the bullying dictators around the world. The difficulty is that judgment as to how we maintain peace in an increasingly difficult world. And I think many will say, those who support Donald Trump will say, when he was president, actually there were no foreign wars, and he kept America and the West out of foreign wars. And I do subscribe to the view that had he won the 2020 election, there's no way Putin would have gone into Ukraine. I don't think that that Iran would have funded some of these Middle Eastern militia groups in the way they have, because, of course, it was Trump that actually pulled America away from the sort of the global deal with Iran. Biden went back into that, funded them with billions of dollars. Look, the reality is, to maintain peace, you've got to have a strong deterrent that the dictators respect and fear. And at the moment, that clearly has failed.
And you think that strong deterrent would be Trump? Well,
it's clearly, I think, a lot stronger than with Joe Biden. It's not a coincidence that when Trump was in power, there was none of these incursions, invasions, and now Biden's been in power. He's perceived as weak. He caved into Iran and other international pressure, and we see what the horrific consequences are. We all know, look, the reality is, it's tough to say, and it sounds difficult, but actually the best way to guarantee peace is for our enemies to respect and fear the deterrent and know that we're prepared for war.
Where are you on it, Kevin?
Well, I always like to help GB News, and when we say what Donald Trump said today, we should always add convicted sex offender, multiple times a liar, right? So let's add that to Donald Trump.
But hold on, do you do that for every single person that you reference? When you're talking about somebody, do you add all these bits and pieces on, or is it just with him?
With Donald Trump, because I think he's such a negative influence both on the United States and the world. And I think that if he's going to lead a bulletin, we need to remember he's been indicted for trying to overturn election results in the United States. And he is, it's on the record, he's a proven sex offender. So that this context, right, because you're asking us, what do we think? Is there going to be World War III? No, I don't believe so, because I think a lot of what comes out of Donald Trump's mouth is rubbish. Now, to come on to some of the more serious and good points that Richard made, is the world safer with the Trump president? I think Donald Trump is actually dangerous for us in this country because he doesn't believe in NATO. He doesn't believe in the alliance that's kept this country safe.
Hang on, Kevin, where's the evidence for that?
Richard, I didn't interrupt you, and I thought a load of what you said was codswallop, so please give me that same respect back. Okay?
I can see where this show is going.
Well, no, we're going to be very well behaved tonight, but it's so Donald Trump, he is just saying whatever comes out of that suntown gob of his to get himself re-elected, and he's actually the dangerous one for his policy on the alliance that's kept this country safe. Well, he's the one who threatened to remove America's funding of the North Atlantic Alliance.
Wasn't that less about him agreeing with NATO and more about the fact that he would say that many of the member states, I think it's only 7 out of the 30-odd, actually meet their spending commitments, and he would argue, and therefore the US end up sticking their hands deeper in their pockets to bail out the countries that can't even afford to pay for themselves. Wasn't that his issue?
There were different levels of funding of NATO, and I think Germany was one example, but, it's not...
But that was his issue, wasn't it? His issue was, why am I paying for your lot when you won't even pay for yourself? So it wasn't that he didn't agree with NATO, it was the funding. Well, am I wrong?
The facts are as you put them, but is it the right thing
to do? So in other words, hang on, let's be clear. Michelle is right, you're completely wrong on that.
Richard.
Sorry, Kevin, you've had your say.
Are you his mate? Have you met him?
I've never met him. I've never spoken to him. Why would you say his mate?
The reality is... And I let you go, so I'm not...
And I've let you have a good piece.
I'm not letting you do it. She's in charge, not you.
She is called Michelle, and Michelle is in charge.
I wasn't talking at you, Michelle, with respect. You're telling him.
Right, don't tell him. He's Richard, I'm Michelle,
you're Kevin. He interrupted Michelle, and you're in charge.
Right, I am in charge, so finish your point, and then you can come back. back in. Go.
So the idea, this fallacy that the world is safer with a president who's he's a proven liar, and he doesn't talk with respect about the alliance that's kept us safe since World War II.
Right, but just help me understand. How is he being disrespectful to NATO versus... Because I'm not hearing him being disrespectful to NATO. What I'm hearing him say is to the people that are not meeting their spending commitments on defence, he is saying, I'm tired of bailing you out.
But he threatened to pull the United States out of NATO.
Because he's tired of having to pick up the tab
is that
for everybody
responsible?
else.
Or do you talk to your fellow leaders and you say, guys, what can we do to help you put your share in?
Well, I would suggest that those conversations have perhaps been had and people are still not doing it. Hence, he's now got to the point of the last resort. Anyway, Richard, bring you back in.
Look, the point is, he wasn't saying he was going to pull out of NATO. He worked on a basis that all of the previous discussions by American presidents to get NATO members to cough up their fair share had failed. And he approached it in a different, tougher, brusquer way that many people find uncomfortable. But the reality is, the result is, people are upping their contributions. I think that, NATO is our great defender, but people have got to pay their way. It's not unreasonable. I think you'd hopefully probably agree with that.
Indeed.
I think in the dangerous world, regrettably, actually, we need to increase our defence spending because there's so many different technological challenges. At the one end, you've got old-fashioned tank warfare. At the other end, you've got drone warfare and other new technology, so it's really difficult.
Would you be in a partnership where you had to continuously pick up the tab for the other partners because they wouldn't pay their way?
No.
So
I'd talk to them and say, guys, I'd say our collective safety in a dangerous world full of evil people relies on us all chipping in.
And what if they looked at you and went, yeah, we agree, and off they went, and it didn't make a blind bit of difference, and you talked to them again, then you talked to them again, then what would you do?
But Donald Trump's not somebody who's reasonable. He doesn't talk to fellow leaders like that, does
he? So you don't think...
You're right, he doesn't, but the reality is he was sick and tired of that approach being tried and failing, and he just approached it in a different way, and I think he's getting results. I just look at the evidence here, which is that when he was in charge, it was a more peaceful world.
4 years, Richard.
4 years.
No, I'm not
4 years.
No.
4 years, and we've nearly had 4 years of a Biden presidency in which the world now feels, I think most would agree, a lot less safe place.
Well, there are many millions of people who would respectfully say that they did not feel that with Trump, with his finger over the nuclear button, that it felt a safer place.
But isn't the whole point of having a nuclear button that you actually think that you would have somebody that has the chops, for want of a cruder phrase, to actually press that button? When you've got someone like a Jeremy Corbyn type on the other side of the coin, when asked and said, would you use this button? Well, no, of course not, because I'm not into those kind of things.
Yes, but
you've got to think that the person in charge would use that.
You do, but you also, don't we want our world leaders to be people we can admire and respect? And, OK, the problem with Donald Trump is, look how he talks about women. The guy, he's just not admirable. He also tried to overturn a democratic election. Who can support that? Oh, this is a fake. This election was stolen. He's going around America saying the election was stolen. Do we believe that here tonight?
But is this a debate about him as an individual, or actually the geopolitical challenges the world faces and how we avoid the horrific descent into something akin to a global war? And I think that these are, for me, I just think we've got to have a strong, robust deterrent, and that is the way that bullies will respect that.
But what is that deterrent then? Because, for example,
that deterrent is being strong at every level. So it's having strong, well-equipped, well-trained armed forces ready to defend the Western interests as a collective. That's what it is, and that goes from bluntly boots on the ground all the way up to the greatest defence of all, but also the most horrific, which is the nuclear deterrent. It's that full spectrum. At the moment, what we've got a nuclear deterrent, but actually, I feel the UK, for example, is very weak in terms of its ability to deploy. We can't even deploy 2 aircraft carriers we paid £8 billion for because we haven't got the ships and the sailors to protect them. And indeed, the dangers for aircraft carriers, for example, are much greater than they were when they were designed and built. And this is part of the technological challenge.
I mean, if we're going to talk about the way that our armed forces have been neglected in the last 14 years, I think we'll find a high degree of agreement between us.
And are you in favour of the nuclear deterrent, so in the form of Trident? Is that something that
I
you
think the
support?
nuclear deterrent is essential to our safety of this country. I think it's absolutely pivotal. I think we as it's a horrific weapon, but we have to have it, and we have to have leaders who the evil people in the world believe it would seriously be considered. Nobody would ever want to use it, but the world is full of mad, bad, and dangerous people. I mean,
and is that Keir Starmer then? So would Keir Starmer, in your mind, you know him, would he be that person that absolutely is willing to press that button?
He's been very articulate about the horror of nuclear weapons and his willingness to protect the people of this country. You
run a political party. Would you be willing and wanting to push that button if you had to?
Look, the key thing is, in a sense, to ensure that no leader is in that position. The way you do that is to have really strong, well-equipped armed forces across the Western world so that people actually
No,
respect.
I got that, but I was asking you, if you was in that position, as that leader, you run the political party...
Ultimately, if you're in charge of running a country, you've got that nuclear deterrent, and the way you create respect and fear is in the worst-case scenario, that your enemy knows that you'd be prepared to use it.
What do you make to it all? Get in touch with me. And what a cheery start to my first day back. I've been off ill for the last few days. Looking at the news agenda today, I was like, what? World War III? What is going on? What do you make to it? Do you take this conversation about what Donald Trump is saying seriously? Do you sit there and think, yeah, this is something I'm worried about? Or do you just think everyone, just quite frankly, needs to calm down a little bit?